It's time to look at the weekend newspapers, and to help me make sense of the headlines, I'm joined by Hilary Joffe, who's an associate editor at Business Times. Hilary, thank you so much. You were, of course, party to listening in on the conversation we had earlier on the 25-year review, with a lot of focus on the economy, as we should. The Sunday Times has a really interesting story. It says Ace Magashule told the NEC ANC, stop blaming everything on those 9 years. And, of course, that's not a surprise necessarily. The Sunday Times also dominated, especially Business Times, by what is happening at Eskom and SAA. Do you think that that is a fair statement to make, or do you think that we should actually be a little bit more blunt about the extent of the damage
done in these Zuma years?
Yeah.
I hate to agree with Ace Magashule. I do think that Eskom was vulnerable to state capture because of the kind of policy chaos around it over many years, even before President Zuma came along and captured the levers of the state. So I don't think that this came from nowhere, but I think an enormous amount of damage, or further damage if you like, was done in that decade. One of the Sunday papers has led on Brian Molefe offering to come back, which is actually raises a whole lot of very interesting issues which we should maybe talk about. And it's not that he began the process. For example, the Sunday Times is talking about the extent to which coal contracts were given to small suppliers who were unable to supply timeously the kind of quality of coal that Eskom needed. And that continues to be a problem, driving up costs and making the operations unreliable. But it didn't begin, I'd have to say, with Brian Molefe, but it certainly was ramped up in the Zuma years by Minister Gigaba when he was the Minister of Public Enterprises. And I think it's symptomatic of a whole way in which the state-owned enterprises were used to drive a particular agenda, which was not about their efficiency, but was about serving all sorts of other objectives.
Yes. Now, if one talks about deracializing the economy, and the state has these massive state-owned companies and development finance institutions on which it actually has direct control, it can put boards together, it can remove people, it doesn't surprise one that these would be institutions that would be deeply contested. They have been for the entire 25 years of our democratic order, Hilary. But they've also stripped naked the fact that very often, like you say, these institutions weren't meant to drive the developmental needs for which policy has been developed, but personal, private agendas. Let's talk about the coal industry, and let's talk about why Minister Mantashe appears to be vested in the coal industry. You and I have spoken about the fact that the IPP total costs can't be configured yet because we don't know what it will cost to set it up to make it part of the grid. So is it as simple as just getting rid of coal and saying whoever can give you other types of energy, bring you on board? Will there be bridging finance involved? And do the people who run this have any idea of how you move from coal to another type of energy?
I think that is a conversation we need to have, and I do think that in terms of mitigating our risk, we do need several sources of energy, and certainly in the medium term, and we're talking the next 18 months to 3 years. We have, for example, the mining industry, which could bring on board another 800 or 900 megawatts of power to serve its own needs and kind of take the load off Eskom very quickly if they were just given the go-ahead by the minister. They have projects ready to go.
Who's preventing them from
Minister Mantashe has clearly resisted signing off these, the kind of regulatory things that are needed to let some of these ready-to-go projects go ahead. Now, I imagine that is ideological and some combination of union pressure and vested interest pressure from junior coal miners.
That's the whole thing.
That is all there.
Yeah, vested interest. Obviously, people who've had coal contracts for 40 years are not wanting to give them up. But we obviously have to transform the coal industry as well. I remember when people had to deliver textbooks, there was this idea that take it away from the big publishers, let's support black publishing. We ended up with, not as a result of using black publishers, but but as a result of people not being capable of delivering on what they set out to do, these textbooks ending up in the kraals of some chiefs. Is this what is happening with coal? Are the small coal producers not able to run their operations on the scale that Eskom requires? Is that why we're ending up with too little coal? And I mean, this nonsense of wet coal. I mean, what about a roof for the bloody coal?
Karim, I'm gonna address that quickly, and then I want to step you back a little bit. I think the issue of coal deserves probably an entire program, and it does raise all sorts of interesting issues. Yes, wet coal is an issue. No, it should have been properly managed, and we do have enough coal. Eskom has spent a lot of money in the past year building up its coal stocks,
yes.
And in theory should have been able to manage up to a point. It doesn't mean we wouldn't have had load shedding, but that sense of being out of control we might not have encountered.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to step us back a bit, because I think what happens when you get load shedding and the kind of crisis that we've been through in the past week or two is that you get people like playing this blame game. It's the coal suppliers, it's Zuma, it's the IPPs, it's this, it's that, it's the other. What we need to step back and say is what is needed to fix Eskom now. And that is not about like restructuring Eskom or changing the policy, or it is about a focus on how do we get Eskom to generate the electricity the country needs, but now, not next year or last year.
So let's answer that question.
And I think that's the kind of thing that people need to be looking at. And I think that there's a lot of kind of blame game and diversionary tactics going on here.
So let's not do that, Hilary. Let's talk about what needs to be done right now with a fairly broken institution that has deep-seated problems, that has real technical deficiencies. What needs to happen? You know, 3 things that will make Eskom run a lot more efficiently than what it's running at the moment.
I really look forward to a new chief executive, because I think it is a very, very broken institution. It has a lot of challenges, and we can go through those challenges, but like everything else, it is about management and leadership. It's a people problem. Eskom has lost layers and layers of ability and experience over many years. It still, thankfully, has some very good people, but they need someone who can pull it together and lead it. And I think that some of the issues we've had in the past couple of weeks, both in what's happened operationally and the way it's been communicated, are management issues. And I think I do think that Andre de Ruyter, who takes office on the 15th of January, is feeling very strong, because he's going to walk straight into this. And by then, we are very likely to be load shedding again.
And of course, we've got unions that are very hostile toward him. They've already declared their intentions.
That's going to be one of his challenges. I think that focus on keeping the lights on and holding the guys within Eskom to account is going to be absolutely crucial. And I think he needs to have a shareholder and a board who will support him and let him do that. And he needs to put a team in place who will help him to do that. And that, I think, is the most urgent need we have at Eskom now. And that is going to give us, if it works, a shorter term fix, if you like, or shorter term improvement than any of these structural and solutions that people
is going to be very critical, right, Hilary?
And he really needs to get himself a strong team of people.
But how does he put that team together, given the fact that the organization has had to get rid of a lot of people who literally used it as a piggy bank? Some people were, sacked. And there's over 1,000 disciplinary cases that people are forgetting about that are actually happening, of people that were involved in wrongdoing. The president has spoken very loosely about sabotage. He was laughed out of the water. But is it unrealistic that some people actually fear a stable Eskom because it will threaten the source of their livelihoods that they have gotten, in ways that are crooked?
I think that is one of the challenges, that there is clearly a lot of pushback by vested interests. And I do think that talking about the sabotage in the way that he did, it was very ill-advised on the part of the president and the Eskom people. I mean, you don't say that kind of thing until you have your facts absolutely clear, you have your evidence, and you've called in the law enforcement authorities. And I think that, but I think it is very possible that there has been sabotage by those very vested interests within Eskom,
yes,
who are now being held to account. And that is going to be one of the challenges for the new leadership team, which I hope will be put in place. Now, that can draw on people within Eskom, and I'm sure Andre de Ruyter will want to see who's kind of worth sort of having around him and who is not. But that's going to be one of his challenges, and given how poisonous the environment is, it's going to have to be very carefully managed, and his shareholder and his board are going to have to support him.
That's going to be the very key thing. He's going to be making unpopular decisions, and he's going to have to be backed and supported. Hilary, thank you so very much. We've run out of time. We have shown you what we think the temperature of the country looks like. You've had your fix for the week. We will again see you next week. Thank you so much for watching.